Welcome, everybody. We are back with another coming live from New York City. And today, I think every topic's fun, but today we're going to cover software shoutouts. I'm going to share my recommended stack of software tooling that we actually use at Doola and recommendations I have too across the stack. So I want to start off, though, and I already have this on the screen, with questions that came in last week that we weren't able to cover. So I love the live chat. We have a global audience. I'm going to go through the top questions, and you might be listening live if you asked this last week. If not, you can check out the recording. Everything is on YouTube. So let's dive in. We're going to start off with covering some questions we didn't cover last week. Then we're going to get into today's topic, which is why software tools matter, and I'm going to give some recommendations on tooling stack overviews. And what do I mean by tooling stack overviews? I'll share tools that work well with Doola. I'll share tools that we use at Doola. And then I have cool examples of other people sharing their software stacks as well. So you can use this as inspiration. So first off, we have a question that came in here. I want to dissolve a company. Could Doola help? And please let me know, are there any fees for cancellations in the USA, Delaware Inc. company for a non-resident? If yes, which fees and how much? Great question. Before I answer this, one, Doola can't help, but let me zoom back when it comes to dissolving a company. Let's define what that means. Dissolving a company means shutting it down. Now, there are two ways you can technically dissolve a company. You can let it dissolve. So that's actually a way you can dissolve a company. There's okay. So effectively, you can think of it as voluntary versus involuntary, or administrative versus voluntary. Now, the way you can think about it is administrative is just letting it die. So technically you can do that, but I do not recommend that. And then you can actually voluntarily or deliberately shut it down and do it compliantly. That's what I would recommend. So, Desi de Lamore, I'm glad you're asking this question. You want to do it properly, which is what I would always recommend. Now, to be a bit more specific here, between administrative versus formal. For formal dissolution, there's a couple benefits as to why you would do this. The first is you can then reinstate the same name if you want to reopen the company. There's no fees to reinstate if you do it properly. You just have to submit a new articles of organization. The company's ended on a specific date you desire. And by the way, I'm referencing a blog post here. You can just search how to dissolve your LLC or corporation. We have a full guide on this. That's what I'm referencing. And ultimately, it's clean, so it's official with the state. Now, there are fees. You'll have to pay a fee to the state. And to answer your question, it depends on the state. So it looks like you're a Delaware Inc. You can check it out on the Delaware state website in terms of the exact fees, or Doola actually does do dissolution, so you can reach out to our team online or schedule a demo. Now, you might be wondering, hey, why not do administrative dissolution? Now, I'll tell you why. The cost is $0, but there's a couple reasons why. You might not be able to reopen the company until you pay all fees. The company shows off as delinquent. So if anyone ever does research, if they can tie that company to you, that doesn't look good. If it says this person, this business, it's delinquent. And there could be fees if you want to reinstate the company. So the way I view it is if you could pay a couple $100, you can DIY it or pay someone to do it for you. If you can pay a couple $100 to do it cleanly, do it cleanly. That's my recommendation. Now, again, it's your business, your choice. I strongly would recommend doing the formal dissolution. So I'm glad you're asking this question. So I hope that's helpful. Again, you can go to just search how to dissolve your LLC or corporation. You can add in Doola at the end too if you want to see the exact post I'm referencing. But we walk through administrative versus formal dissolution. This is a fantastic question. Thank you, DC de Lamore, for asking. Next question that came in was, I'm from Albania. Can I open PayPal US with LLC? Fantastic question. So I'm going to reference this as well too. If you actually search for how to open a US PayPal account, and you can add Doola in at the end for good measure, we have a guide that walks through exactly how to do this. We also have a video on how to do this too. So the first question is, yes, you can open a PayPal account from outside the US. Now, I will jump to the trickiest thing here. The trickiest thing is that unlike Stripe, PayPal will actually require a US taxpayer identification number in addition to your EIN. So not with Stripe, for example, you can just use your EIN. To open a PayPal account, you're going to actually need either a US social security number, or an individual taxpayer identification number for business PayPal. So specifically from Albania, and I'll answer this for any country, but we can do Albania. The first thing I would want to do is check for PayPal and see if there's any country on their restricted business list. So it's different for every financial institution. This could change too. But that's what I would do. Whether you're applying for a bank account or a credit card, whatever it is, go to that company's site. And I do this because we inform customers, but things can change. So I would always do a final check and check out that site and search for a company name restricted company list. See if your country's on the restricted list. And this is typically due to, could be federal sanctions, it could be a decision by the company. Check and make sure that your country isn't listed there. And then it is possible. So typically the process, and we help founders with this, is you need to get your LLC and EIN, then apply for an ITIN if you don't have a social, and then you can apply to set up your PayPal account. So fantastic question here, Anis. If you need an LLC, we can help with that. If you have questions on the ITIN process, you can schedule a demo too. But overall, I would say, and I don't know the answer for Albania off the top of my head, I would want to double check. So you can do a check for PayPal restricted country list and see if Albania is on there. But that's what I would do. It's a great question there. Next question. This was a question from Mustaqim7972. How much time does it take to get my EIN number? Let's zoom back before we zoom in. EIN stands for Employer Identification Number. You can think of this as the social security number for your business. So I'm a US citizen. I have a US social. That's a way to tie me to the IRS or government using a number. It's like a barcode for myself. It's like literally having a barcode that the government can scan me with. For your business, right? So there's me, the IRS. Here's the barcode. Your business with the IRS, the barcode is the EIN or the employer identification number. So I kind of think of it like the social security number for your business. Now, you need an EIN to get a US business bank account. You also need it to file taxes. So I would recommend, and this is one of the top mistakes I see post formation, is not getting an EIN. You should get an EIN. As a US founder, you can do it online. Non-US founder, you have to fax form SS4 to the IRS. You can also pay a provider to do it too. We're more than happy to help. Or you can DIY it. Now, to get your EIN, there's an important consideration. If you are a US founder with a social security number, or non-US, but you have a social, you can actually get the EIN close to instantly online. I say close to instantly because sometimes the IRS website is buggy or breaks, so it might take a day. But usually within a day, you can get it online. If you do not have a social, unfortunately, you have to fax or mail Form SS4, which is the application for an EIN, to the IRS. And that can take 2 to 8 weeks, can even take longer. Now, I know people hear that, and something that we do at Doola is we will give the more conservative timeline. So the reason I share this is there might be other companies that say, oh yeah, we can get your EIN as a non-US founder in 2 days. I would be skeptical because, one, they might likely be using someone else's social, which the IRS directly prohibits. You can't borrow someone else's social to get your EIN. The responsible party has to be the person doing that. So, for example, a non-US founder couldn't say, hey, Arjun, can I use your social? And then, cool, I got the EIN, just give it to you. The IRS prohibits that. So if someone says they can do it in a day or two, we don't say that. I mean, technically we could and say it so you win your business and say, oh, the IRS is taking a while. We don't. We say, we say it takes up to 8 weeks because it can. It's an IRS dependent process. So in this case here, it really does depend. Do you have a social or not? If you have a social, you can get it faster. If you don't, unfortunately, it can take weeks. And if the IRS is busy, because it's a paperish process, it can take over 8 weeks. So especially, I'll give you the worst times in the new year when people are starting businesses, there's delays. Anytime there's really a spike in formations or IRS activity around tax season or the new year, that's when you can anticipate delays. So fantastic question here. Again, to summarize, the biggest variable here will be whether you have a social or you don't. Next question that came in. If I'm 17 years old, can I open a Mercury bank account? This is from Abdallah Atala. First of all, that is so awesome. We have a 17-year-old here who's looking to open a business bank account, working on a business. I think that's so cool. When I was 17, I think I was playing video games. So shout out to you. Now, to answer the question, it depends on the bank. But for most banks, I won't say for all banks because I'm actually not sure for every bank. But for most banks, you need to be at least 18 to open a bank account. So that's a bank policy. Now, if you're 17, what you could do, if someone else is the banking beneficiary or the owner, technically you might be working as a part of the business, or if it's a multiple member LLC, maybe that person is actually running the bank account and you're running the business too. But to be a beneficiary owner of the bank account or to open up the bank account, you have to be at least 18. Now, I will touch on this. What's interesting is not every state in the US requires you to be 18 to open an LLC. You can actually be a minor. There are some states that do require you to be 18. So I think it is interesting. Some states say you can form an LLC without being 18. Banks, though, have this age requirement. So you might have to wait 1 year, but that being said, doesn't mean you can't start the business. Or if there's someone who's over 18 who you're working with and they're part of the business, that can be a way to get around this and actually open the account. And then when you are of age, you can become an official listed beneficiary owner of the bank account. And just for reference, if anyone needs help opening a Mercury account, we have a partnership with them. So you can reach out to Doola, whether you have a business or don't. You can chat with us. We have a direct contact relationship with the team. So in case your application is denied, we can't change that outcome, but we can better understand, hey, what went wrong, and share what we've learned from helping thousands of founders go through this flow to getting a bank account. Okay. And the last question that came in, I'm checking the chat too, so feel free to ask away, was, can I start a business in the USA as I am on an H-4 visa? Will there be any legalities involved as H-4 holders are not allowed to work? I am not a visa expert. Doola is not a visa expert. That being said, we have a partnership with this company called LegalPad, which was acquired by Deal. So for founders who work with Doola, we have a link to actually set you up with a consultation there. So for that specifically, I can't answer this question, Rahul, but what I would recommend is you can message Doola and our team. We're happy to share the link. Again, we want to provide the education, but for our customers, we have this dedicated referral link. Rahul, you can message and our team can share that link. You can check them out online too. You can just go to LegalPad and they offer consultations. So you can actually chat with them to understand requirements for your specific use case. Fantastic question. Thank you for asking. Okay, now with that, let's jump in to today's topic, which is, drum roll, please. Today's topic, software shoutouts. Let's talk software. This is always sexy. This is fun. I want to talk about different tools across the stack that I think are best in class in each category, things that we use too, and I'd love to hear what you use as well. So we're gonna be doing software shoutouts today. These are tools that work well with Doola, tools that I use, and I want to hear your stack too. So the very first thing is, why do software tools matter? The way I view it is that when you're starting a business, you do not have to nor should you build everything in-house. A lot of software is actually built to make it easier for you to run different portions of your business or to augment a portion of your business. So I think of it as it helps you grow faster, it helps you stay compliant, it helps you automate operations. Really, there could be a tool, and this is what's cool about software. There's this famous line, software is eating the world. Every portion of the world, what software is doing is it's code that has set instructions, which means it happens instantly. It doesn't make mistakes because it's defined. And because you can do that, you can replace what someone might do, which allows them to do higher leverage tasks and automate more things. So I think it's a net boon overall. That's why a lot of the biggest businesses in the world that have scaled the most quickly are software businesses too, because it's highly repeatable. It's code. It can just run instantly at scale. So with that, let's go through some of the most powerful software tools and the tools we see / the tools we use at Doola as well. So I'm going to start off with, actually, before we start off, I want to share this. I'm going to share an example just so you can see that, you might see these types of posts that go around, which are these software stack posts. So I want to share this example here from Alex Lieberman, and this is his startup stack. So as we go through this, you can start to think, hey, what's my software stack? And maybe you post it on social too. You can get feedback from others. I think that's a great way to actually get feedback. So I'll zoom in here, and he said, I spent 10 years refining my startup stack. Here are the tools I'm using to run my business in 2025. Legal, Doola, there we go, awesome. Banking, Mercury. Content marketing, StoryYard. Marketing, Growth Pair. VA, Oceans. Operating, EOS Worldwide. CRM, HubSpot. Accounting, Better Bookkeeping. FP&A, Fuel Finance. HR, Gusto. Management, Hampton. Syncomms, Zoom, Asyncomms, Slack. Full list of my reviews below. So as you're going through, you can maybe even take your notes or do a post like this, but what's your stack? I find these always very interesting. So let's actually go through now. And as I go through, you can chime in with tools. Banking and payments. I already mentioned Mercury earlier. They're the primary bank that we see Doola founders have success with, especially as non-US founders. Now, there's many other tools here. I'll mention a couple others. There's Wise, there's Payoneer, there's Stripe for payments, there's Shopify payments. So those are typically the biggest ones that we see at Doola. Shopify payments, Stripe, Payoneer, Wise, Mercury. those are the platforms where a lot of founders that we're seeing today want to get set up with. Now, if you're a venture-backed company, and Doola doesn't really go after venture-backed companies, there's platforms like Brex or Row. So there's lots of banking options. There's your more traditional banks like your Bank of Americas, your Chase, etc. But I would say for banking and payments, the most popular from Doola customers are Mercury, Wise, Payoneer, and Stripe and Shopify payments when it comes to payments. Okay, next up, bookkeeping. Now, I'm obviously a little biased. Doola offers bookkeeping, but if I were to zoom out, I'd say the other or the most popular tools, not the other. They are the most popular tools. They've been around for a while. We serve a specific niche. We're technically still a startup, but QuickBooks and Xero. Those are probably the two biggest in the space, and there's lots of tools. So what I would say here is that obviously I would love if you use Doola bookkeeping, but if you don't, use some tool. You probably shouldn't even use a spreadsheet. Definitely don't use pen and paper. But in this day and age, there's plenty of free bookkeeping software or cheap software you can use to automate the solution away. You should not spend time manually adding and categorizing transactions. Please use some free software, or it's usually it's less than $30 a month, less than $1 a day. Connect all your bank accounts, your credit accounts, and it automatically will just do it for you. So please, 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 if you haven't already, don't overthink it. You don't even need to pay for a dedicated human bookkeeper, although I'd recommend that because your time is money. So eventually, when your business reaches that point, I think you should. But in the interim, use software, have it categorize things for you. You need to know the numbers of your business to know if you're generating money or not. This is really important. It unlocks things like if you're making 50 to 75K in profit, the S Corp tax selection could actually help you save thousands by reducing the self-employment tax rate. So there's lots of things you could do here. Please don't be that founder. This is my call to action. At least get some free bookkeeping software. Okay, communication and CRMs. Let's start with communication. We use Slack at Doola. Now, there's other workplace chats. I think I'm actually seeing companies use Discord too. I think at small stages, I've heard of founders just in companies using just iMessage or WhatsApp. So I'm curious what other folks use. I'd say Slack or Discord are the two most popular ones I hear, and that's communication. Now, for CRMs, HubSpot, I would say, is most popular around smaller companies, SMBs, mid-market, and larger companies use it too. Salesforce is also, the other dominant CRM. I haven't personally used Salesforce, so I'm probably a bit biased. HubSpot's also a strategic investor in Doola, so sharing that full disclosure. But I would say that HubSpot's a great solution. They have starter plans all the way up to company. Doola uses HubSpot too, and we're scaling as well. So it can support small companies and larger companies as well. Lastly, for communication, there are many scheduling tools you can use. I think Calendly is probably one of the larger name tools. Google has scheduling capabilities too. There's other companies like cal.com I've heard of. So these are nice tools because you can have a link where someone can book. There's also these calendar apps where you can schedule and drag time and send a link to book time too. So for scheduling, Calendly is one that comes to mind. I'm curious if there's any other tools folks use. E-commerce / online selling. The two biggest we see at Doola are Shopify and then Amazon FBA if you're going more the marketplace approach. Now, there are other platforms you can use here too. There's tools like Gumroad. You can even just use Stripe directly with Stripe payment links and drop that onto your website. But Shopify is typically what we see as the most popular option for someone starting an online digital business. And again, I say that because you might not even need to sell a product on Shopify. You can sell digital services too. Okay. We were going to talk about AI. We have to talk about AI. So for AI-powered productivity, I've tested and I use a bunch of tools. So I've tried GPT, Gemini, Claude, Perplexity. Yeah, those are probably the four main ones I use. Now, I typically the three main ones I use, and this is actually what I do. It's Gemini, Claude, and ChatGPT. And what I'll do is if I have a question, I ask all three. And then I'll sometimes do deep research in all three and just put my feet up and let the IQ 250 genius, that's kind of how I view them. They're these 200 plus IQ geniuses who have the world's information at their fingertips. So if I'm trying to research or think through a problem, I can just fire it over to them, deep research, let it run, and then just help that inform what I'm doing. So that's overall what I would recommend in terms of AI powered productivity. I think there's definitely just still something to the way your brain can solve problems, especially in business, given the context you have. But I view it as supplementation. It's kind of like AI steroids in some sense, where you're supplementing all this knowledge. And what I found is, I'll give you a very recent example. I was thinking through, hey, for next year's strategy, and I did this entire first draft old school, pen and paper, no AI, nothing, pen and paper writing. Then what I did is I took that and did a voice dump to transcribe it. And then I sent it off and said, hey, what would you do? What are your thoughts? And what I found is this. From scratch, it's not perfect because it doesn't have the full context. And I think you could argue, hey, it's a prompt issue. You're not giving it full context. But I found that it just provides interesting angles. Like, hey, you didn't think about that. Or here's a lever or dimension. So that's the way I view it. I think I would call it augmentation. Like I actually view AI as incredibly powerful for giving you the Iron Man suit, not replacing you. And that's why I think AI is powerful. And the line I love here is AI won't take your job, but someone who knows how to use AI will. The other thing I'll touch on is for automation, there's tools like Zapier or Make or N8N where you can string together these AI tools and workflows as well. Okay, let's talk analytics and tracking as the final bucket. At Doola, we use Google Analytics /GA4. We also use Posthog, and we use this tool called Hyros for attribution. Now, for the founders listening, I don't know anyone who's fully cracked attribution. It's always messy. There's going to be directional components. So if you're out there thinking, and I've asked a ton of consultants and people about this, hey, have you cracked attribution? What they say is no, but if you figure it out, tell me. So I actually don't think you'll ever get perfectly to 100%. And just to double click into why it's the case. One, I think just traditionally the buyer journey now is not linear. You might see an ad over here. There's a billboard. You might hear from a friend. So these purchase journeys aren't linear, because you have smartphones and all these cross-platform ways that you could interact with products today. So given that, you actually could have someone who hears about you, or maybe they see on their phone, that's where they discover you via an ad. Then they go to Google and they just type in your name. So like just to walk through this, the first touch might have been mobile, and that's because a friend said, hey, check out this company. So technically they might click on their phone and come to your website, but then they go back on their desktops. Now we switch platforms. They go to their desktop in Google, and you might have branded Google ad campaigns to protect or defend against competitors bidding, and they click on that Google ad. But then they might just let it sit. And then when they go to do research, they might go to YouTube and see 3 influencer videos, and they click on one of the influencer referral links, and then they don't come back, and then they go purchase again, but they're in an incognito window. I don't know why. Or they switch to Safari, let's say that, and then they purchase. So which one do you give credit to? So that just highlights the buyer journey today, which is confusing, and it's so cross-platform. So what we try to do at Doola is we look at the first touch, but we also are looking at, hey, what are customers saying in terms of what they think, or because a customer might say, hey, it was a YouTube video, but that just might mean that holds the most weight in their brain. So the way I view it is, it's a dream if you can have one channel, here's the return, turn the dial. But I think in this day and age, what you have to do is look at things holistically, and look by channel, and look at first touch, and look at customer attribution, and try to do mid-journey analysis. And that's how you can try to stitch together what that journey is. And then I think ultimately, and people might not like to hear this, but you do more of everything and do it responsibly and see how the overall pie grows, and you look by channel, and that's how you start to scale things up there. But I think it's really, and if someone's cracked this, please tell me. I don't think it's possible just to say, hey, look at every channel in isolation and just turn dials. Your paid can help your organic. Your influencer can help your organic. Your organic can help your paid. Everything supplements. So you have to look at everything. And I think we have a combination of Google Analytics with GA4, Posthog, and Hyros. This is how we do it internally. Okay. That's a wrap. And to finish off here, my final recommendation is this can sound overwhelming. There's so many tools. Start somewhere. Even if you're just picking one tool per week, but like a CRM, the best CRM is the one you use. I think HubSpot's great, but if you're using a different CRM, you're good. Same thing. The best solution, if you're using a bookkeeping solution, is one you actually use. There's all the tools and software out there, and I don't think that alone is going to help define if your business wins. It'll absolutely help, but ultimately, these tools make it easier so that you can go out and acquire customers and understand their pain points and build their solution. And to wrap up, that's exactly what we're trying to do with Doola. We want to provide this tooling, the LLC formation, the compliance, the bookkeeping, the analytics behind the scenes so that you can focus on what you do best while Doola handles the rest. So we are very much trying to take these disparate tools. We've just heard loud and clear, founders don't want 10 browser tabs or 5 vendors. They want one solution, one person they can talk to, actual humans if needed, who can handle their back office for them. That's what we're doing with our business in a box for e-commerce. So that is a wrap. Thank you all. I would love to hear the tools you use. You can ping me. Again, if anyone publishes their stack, I hope Duel is in there for formation, for bookkeeping, for tax. But if you have tools you recommend or prefer, please let me know. Kind of geek out on these types of things. And if there's any questions that come in, we'll cover them again beginning of next week. And that's a wrap. Thank you so much. And as we always finish, I will LLC you next Tuesday.